Michael, Jen, gathered here today with you, in the midst and the majesty of these great Smoky Mountains, is the presence of God. Love shared is the most wondrous of all experiences. And when two people allow themselves to share true love, they join together in body, in mind, and in spirit. And who gives this bride to be married?
Her mother and I.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. The guests may also be seated. Thank you. Michael, Jen, ideally a marriage is that place where two individual expressions can join together and create a safe space for each other.
In today's episode, we want to talk about why we love the Great Smoky Mountains, and in general, the Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area, and all the things that it has to offer.
There are so many words that I could use to describe the way you make me feel, but none of the words even come close to describing what I feel when I think of you and when I think of us. It wasn't long ago that I decided that no matter what, I love you, and it was around that same time that I also decided that you were the one that God has had me patiently waiting for.
Second episode.
This is number 2.
This is number 2.
Alright, so let's see. So we wanted to talk about, why we love Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Obviously the first reason was we got married. We got married there. I highly recommend Chapel at the Park.
Yes, it is so pretty, and everything was done. Like when I called to, all kinds of different chapels and things to get information and that sort of thing. They all have the different packages, but this one had everything we were looking for a very reasonable price. It was beautiful, hopefully, as you just saw, and everything was taken care of. We literally showed up. Of course, I have to bring my own dress. The guys are easy. They just walk in a shop and rent their tuxedos. And then you just show up that day. They talk you through everything. It was really nice. So we didn't have to, plan a huge wedding or anything, but we still kind of got one.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about getting married in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, I highly recommend Chapel at the Park. You won't regret it. I mean, they videoed, they did the photography, they did the catering for the reception, and we felt very welcomed. They treated us like royalty the whole time we were there.
Like we were the only couple getting married at all.
Yeah.
So we can definitely put their information in the description.
In the description. We'll put it in the description.
Yeah.
And
we're not getting paid. We're not sponsored or anything.
Yeah, no,
this is just what we
this
do.
isn't a sponsor, but I was very pleased with Chapel at the Park. And it was a well-oiled machine because they have weddings going on like all day long.
Oh yeah, every few hours.
And it's like, okay, your photo session is over. Our next group is coming in, and we went on to the reception.
But I didn't feel rushed. Did you feel rushed?
No, I didn't feel rushed.
They make one party completely vacate before the next one's even allowed to come in. So you don't see them. It's as if you're the only one. It's nice. It was very nice.
The second reason that we love Great Smoky Mountains, there's just so much to do. So many things to get into. I think the last time we were there for 4 days, and we had a list of tons of things we wanted to do, and we simply ran out of time and didn't get to do everything.
I think you could live there. I have friends I went to school with, former students, etc., that live there, and I don't know how long it would take you to actually do everything. And it depends on if you have a family or not. Like right now, we're just traveling, the two of us. So we're adults and we're sharing with you what we like the best, but there are so many things for families.
And the thing about it is, it doesn't matter how many times you go back, there's always something different that you can get into. We're kind of creatures of habit, and we kind of do the same things because we enjoy those kind of things. And
Our must-haves. We
Right.
have to go to Cades Cove. We have to eat at the Melting Pot. We have to eat it. Or, we'll get into those, but...
it's just one of those things where 2 days is not going to be enough. 4 days is not going to be enough.
No.
A week might not even be enough. I would like, as we get into RVing and traveling and those kind of things, to spend at least a month.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
At least
Yeah.
a month in Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, in that area. And just to be able to explore a lot of the things that we have on our list, but we don't always necessarily have the time to get through.
Right.
And this is my cheat sheet. There's so much I didn't want to forget, and there's probably a lot that I left on here. But things like mini golf, dinner shows, hiking, the many waterfalls you can explore. Cades Cove is our favorite.
Yes.
You never know what kind of wildlife you're going to interact with. We've been fortunate, I think 1 or 2 times, to interact with bears and those kind of things. Horses and deer and wild turkeys. It's just nice to drive through a nice, peaceful setting and just be at one with nature and enjoy, the fresh air and being outdoors.
So a little bit about Cades Cove. So you've got Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg, north to south. And then just west of that, would you say, it's only 20-some miles, but it takes like an hour to get there just because of the hills and things, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's about
Is it an hour-ish?
it's about 50-some minute drive.
Yeah, to the west,
I think
past
it's west.
Townsend.
Is that southwest? I think it's south. I'm horrible with directions.
Yeah, it's west.
But
it's just west of those.
But just know it's near Townsend, wherever that is. Yeah.
But you drive over there, and it's this. Is it a park? It's part of the Smoky
It's
Mountains,
part of
right?
the park. Yeah.
But like you said, you drive. Once you go over there, you follow the signs. All of a sudden, you're on the road, and then it just opens up. It becomes this one-way path that you can drive through. We see families bicycling through there, and it's a one-way path, idyllic, scenic, open open pastures and fields and things. And there have been times, like you said, we saw black bears, and of course, I have to get out and go look at the bears, and he has to sit in the car usually and wait to pull me back because I want to walk right up to the bears. So they're, depending on the season, depending on the time of day that you go, but we've seen deer, elk, right?
Yeah.
Deer and elk, wild turkeys, of course, black bears, horses, and then all your, squirrels and things like that. But it's a 7-mile. I keep getting 11 mile.
It's 7.5 miles.
We should look that up. But it's a big loop that you go through, and then in the very back you can get out, and there's places to the visitor center that you can go into. But then behind that, what's that one called? The one where you can walk to. We got out one time and walked behind there.
So
little paths and things.
So there's all kinds of places that you can get out your car and walk. There's also Abrams Falls is in Cades Cove. We attempted to walk that one day, but we were running out of daylight. So that is still on our list. And there's like old cabins, schoolhouses,
An old church.
an old Methodist church.
People bring food, they have little picnics and stuff. You can get out and wander around.
And that's, I think that's why I like it so much, because if you don't want to be in the car, you can ride your bike, you can walk, even though I probably wouldn't recommend walking it.
Wait, they had horse trails. Like at the very end when we went to leave, was there a carriage also?
I don't remember.
I don't remember if the horses were drawing some carriages, but you could definitely. Why do I want to say rent a horse? You can not rent a horse.
You can go horseback riding through Cades Cove.
Yes.
That is an option.
That would be fun one time.
Like I said, just in that location alone, there's so much you can get into and explore off the beaten path, so to speak. And I think
Number 1, Cades Cove.
Yeah, and it's easy to know. It's easy to tell when there's bears because it's usually where people congregate. And traffic will be backed up forever. So I don't advise, walking up to the wildlife and the bears, but you'd be surprised how many people just want that picture, want that photo opportunity.
We'll be driving through the mountains, and like you said, there'll be traffic stops, and you just know there's bears. You just know it. So I make him pull over, and then I get out. And I'm taking my phone. I got to take the pictures and things and get as close as I can.
Yeah, I'm not that brave. Yeah, I will protect her if I need to. I will sacrifice myself as tribute. I'll volunteer as tribute.
You also run faster, so I'm automatically going to be.
But I'm not volunteering to be up front and personable with the bears. I'm just not. But if that's your thing, knock yourself out. A lot of hiking trails, Laurel Falls.
Yes.
If you've never done that, that's one. It's a fairly easy hike. But
it's very narrow.
I think it's 1.3 miles up the mountain. It's not level, but it's a pretty easy climb.
But we see people, from families with young kids going up and coming back down. We've seen older people going up and down. I would say it's at least a medium kind of hike. It's not flat. It's very easy to walk on it.
Right.
But there's a lot of steep kind of up and down, but it is totally worth it. Do we have any pictures or video we can?
Yeah, I will.
There? It is.
I'll attach
totally worth it. We have to go back
couple pictures, videos. The best advice I can give you is just take your time. It's totally worth it once you get to the top. I will say there are no rails. I'm afraid of heights, as you saw in the last video. And I think the side of my body was covered in dirt from hugging the mountain. If you are afraid of heights, I will tell you the views are spectacular, and you will still be afraid walking up the mountain, but it's worth it. I'm glad I did it.
But it wasn't like a narrow ledge. Two people could walk side by side, so he kind of stayed to the inside, and you can look if you want. You don't have to.
It wasn't narrow, but it was just a perception of no rails,
up a mountain.
and the I could see the treetops, and that's high for me.
Right. But there's a lot of places you can drive too. I was just thinking of Klingman's Dome, that you can drive up to the highest point. So there's plenty of places you could drive up. It's still kind of nerve-wracking,
right,
because you can see over the trees as you look down. But
yeah, and if you can take that drive from Gatlinburg to Cherokee, do it. The views are spectacular.
Right.
I think it took us about an hour, maybe, to get from Gatlinburg to Cherokee.
I was thinking it was a while.
But the views are spectacular.
You don't even realize it. That's why we keep looking at each other like, is it an hour? Is it 40 minutes? You don't know, because sometimes the traffic is just backed up, but the views along the way make up for it. Because most of the time when he's driving, I'm just staring at the streams and the water coming down. It had rained one day when we were there. So then later you could just see the water, unofficial waterfalls, just water just coming down, and you just kind of lose track of time. And one thing we always do is allow myself to beat him at mini golf. Am I still up? I think I'm still up.
No.
You did win this last time.
Of course I won.
Not of course, not of course. There's no of course. I have beat you way more times. Way more times. Yes, I have. I have. We have evidence.
So
somewhere.
Going on to the next.
but
So
Hillbilly.
some of our favorite places in Gatlinburg include Hillbilly Golf.
Okay, wait, time out. That one is so cool. So if you've ever been mini golfing, you know what mini golf is, right? But this one is, you have to take a lift, a cart, up the mountain to the very top to start. So hole number 1 is at the very top. And I don't know how in the world they built it. There's two courses. So you pull off to the side of the road, there's this Hillbilly Golf sign. You get your the golf ball and the club like you always do. You get in this little cart and it takes you all the way up, and you pass all the different holes you're going to play on the way down. You get all the way to the top, and you get to decide, do you want to do the one on the left or the one on the right? Because there's no crossing the track. You just pick the one you're going to do. And then you get down so far, and I think you have to get back in the little cart to come the rest of the way down.
Yeah,
but
you have to come in.
I have never seen it. Like, it just says Hillbilly Golf, but there's nothing there because it's all tucked into the mountain. So Crave was the latest one that we did. It was a sweets and treats kind of theme. We did the indoor one because we just kind of ran out of time to do the outdoor one. Their outdoor one is up on the roof, so that was kind of cool because you got to spin the wheel. You didn't just play mini golf. You had to spin this wheel, and it would tell you to putt on one leg or putt from one knee or spin around 5 times and then try to play. So that's the only reason he kind of beat me, and he only beat me by 1 stroke. So that tells you kind of all you need to know. So. Where else did you want to go?
Are you finished?
For now. Yeah.
The other is the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail.
Yes.
It's in Gatlinburg, I think right around light 8.
I think so.
You turn at light 8, turn left at light 8. If you're coming from Pigeon Forge, turn right if you're coming from Townsend into Gatlinburg. And it's spectacular. The views are spectacular. Now, when we were there this couple weeks ago, for whatever reason, that trail was blocked off, so we didn't get to go up there. But again, if you're afraid of heights, it's pretty intense.
It is very narrow. I swear, I would not drive anything bigger than an SUV.
Yeah.
Through there. It is very narrow. There are no railings in many places, but it is completely, totally worth the drive. It really is. And that's where one time we were driving through some of the parking areas that are there. And I had the window down, of course, because we're looking out, taking pictures. And a baby bear had just come trotting down nature and jumped right beside the car. And I could not think fast enough to take a picture or anything. It just jumped. And the first thing I thought was, if there's a baby bear, there's going to be a mama bear, and I need to get this window up or something, because it just jumped right by the window and then went around the car and went on down the mountain.
It's important.
That was cool.
It's important to note she doesn't drive with the window down going through these trails anymore.
Nope, we're good.
It was. You just had to be there
Yeah.
to see the expression.
I just kept saying for like an hour, but it was right there. It was right there.
But for the trail. Now there's 2 ways you can go, and because the upper part was closed, we took the lower part. We'd never done that. I wasn't really enthused. It really didn't excite me or impress me very much, because you didn't have like the high mountain views and the very sharp, narrow turns.
You just kind of went through a loop and came back.
Yeah,
it was very short.
It was pretty short.
But if that back piece is open,
right,
that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah, the lower one really wasn't worth it to me, but if you can do the Roaring Fork part, definitely do it. It's worth it. It's worth the views. It's worth your heart racing a little bit, because you do get a couple places where it does take your breath, especially if you're afraid of heights. Gatlinburg, Melting Pot. We love the Melting Pot in general, but Gatlinburg is kind of special because You know, there's windows everywhere, and you
And
can
it's up on the second floor.
It's
It's
right.
worth noting because if you've ever been to the melting pot, every one of them is different. It's not like your standard, you don't just drive by and go, oh, that's a melting pot. I can tell by the way it looks. For example, the one we have here in Columbus, it's just this unassuming opening. It's got a sign and some double doors, but you have to go in and go downstairs.
Right.
And the whole thing is downstairs. And it's dark and it's intimate and all that. The one in Gatlinburg is above TGI Fridays, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have to go in and you have to go up to the second floor to get to it. And like you said, the windows and the views make it
you can
work.
see. You can people watch if you want, if that's your thing. But you can see like the sky tower, those kind of things, which is
Did you
nice.
see the skylift from in there?
You could see
Depends
this.
on
You
where
could,
you're sitting.
depending on where you're sitting, you could see Skylift Park and those kind of things. But that's one of our favorite places in Gatlinburg. Now, I've got to tell you, if you've never been to the Melting Pot, it is not a McDonald's price.
No.
Be prepared to spend at least $100
For two.
for two. It is kind of expensive, but
But you're paying for the experience.
right.
It's the 4-course meal. We always get the dinner for two. I think they have big night out and then bigger night out. The only difference is like a lobster tail on the one. But yeah, it's a fondue restaurant. Just to give you a little bit of background, they bring out cheese first, any kind of the cheese that you can choose, and then they've got apples and bread, carrots, broccoli, some things you can dip into the cheese, and then they bring you your salad,
Yep.
which is not just your regular salad with ranch. It's a special mix that they do, and then the main part is they bring out, I think they have 4 or 5 different oils, cooking styles you can choose from, and they bring out the oils and all the seasonings and then all the meat. And we had Memphis style pork, there was herb crusted chicken,
Garlic pepper steak.
a peppercorn type, or maybe that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
You put all that in there, and then they've got vegetables, potatoes, zucchini, whatever. And then the piece de resistance, I'm sure I just butchered that, is the chocolate at the end. So if you like milk chocolate or dark chocolate, they have bananas Foster, s'mores, white chocolate, which is my favorite, with all kinds of like Rice Krispie treats and fruit and cakes and brownies and stuff you can dip in the end. And it's a lot of food, but that's one of those things you lose track of time too. Well, you're there for 2 hours minimum, I would say, around 2 hours. And each time they bring out another course, you have time to kind of rest a second, and they bring out the next one. But it's totally worth it. I mean, we don't go all the time.
I highly recommend it. And the nice thing about the one in Gatlinburg, there's a parking garage next to it, and I think it's $15 to park there, but they'll take that off your bill if you're eating at the Melting Pot.
Right.
You just take your parking receipt in, and you give it to your waiter, and they'll take that off your check. So that's kind of nice.
The Old Mill is specific to, that's Pigeon Forge. So the Old Mill restaurant, we have a ton of pictures of that. That's one of those family style sit down dinners we've eaten. But then that leads us to Applewood restaurant also.
So the Apple Barn, Applewood Family Restaurant is an absolute must.
Cannot go to that area without going to
Yeah,
Applewood.
you have to. If you like good old fashioned country cooked meals,
home cooked, yeah.
then the Applewood is the place to go. Again, the Apple Barn, I think it's getting ready to open up
In May?
in May. It was closed when we went down a couple weeks ago, but they had the best apple fritters, apple pies, apple cider, anything you can think of. It's a must do if you
And the
go
food
to
is so
Pigeon
good.
Forge. So that gets us to some tips.
Yes. Tip 1.
Number 1, so make sure you are always gassed up.
Yes. If
Great.
you get to half a tank, you're
Yeah.
empty.
Great
You better
Smoky
go.
Mountains is a tourist location. It does get crowded and traffic. It's very normal to sit in traffic. We're going to and from Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. We've kind of learned some shortcuts to get around traffic.
Yes.
If you're nice to the locals, they might give you some tips, but most of the time, that's their way of getting to work on time
Right, so why
and
would they
those
tell
kind of
tourists?
things. So,
But one we can share with you is Teaster Lane, Teaster Drive, Teaster Road. Teaster Lane. And it's parallel to the main strip in Pigeon Forge. So a lot of times, I can't remember off the top of my head which light it goes from and to, but if you're trying to get from one end of Pigeon Forge to the other, take that Teaster Lane. Is that right about where the old mill is? In that area-ish?
yeah,
On the
something
southern
like-
side, you can go around. It's parallel. There are a bunch of stores and things on that strip as well. And if you stay on the main strip, you're going to miss all that stuff over there. But you can bypass all of that and get all the way around to one of the other lights to get where you need to be.
Yeah,
It's the only one that I think we know
so
of.
if you have like dinner reservations, show reservations, those kind of things, you kind of got to take traffic into consideration. Or there's a very good chance you might be late and miss out on your reservation. The tip number 2, cell phone service is very spotty. So when we went a couple weeks ago, I had my cabin information on my cell phone in my email. I wasn't thinking that I might lose service and I won't be able to pull up that information. Well, in that email was the directions to the cabin,
Right.
the code to get in the door. Usually they'll also have like instructions to turn off an alarm. In our case, it was the instructions on how to lock the door.
Lock the door, right. We couldn't
which-
figure out how to lock it. But I had taken a screenshot of it. So take a screenshot of your emails, your confirmations, the directions, things like that, because you'll get going and you think your GPS is working, and then you get further along down the road, you get ahead of the connection, and then you lose your connection and you're sitting there, especially if you arrive after dark.
Yeah.
Try not to do that either, if you can help it. Go find your cabin while it's still daylight when you first get to the area is another tip that goes along with that.
Right.
So you know where you're supposed to be.
And always put in your GPS when you have service, because you never know what you're going to lose. The last tip is just, spread your activities out, because there's no way to do everything in 1 or 2 days. They got go-kart riding, zip lines, horseback
Extreme
riding,
bungee
hiking,
skydiving.
you name it. You can do it at the Great Smoky Mountains. And the other thing, traffic doesn't really allow for you to do a lot of activities in one day, especially if you're downtown Gatlinburg, those kind of areas. If you're trying to drive around places, you'll be stuck in your car most of the day. So we try to find places where, we can get out, walk around. Downtown Gatlinburg has a lot of shops. I love Pepper Palace in the mall that's downtown. I usually go get all my seasonings and hot sauce and all that good stuff. So you cannot do it all in a couple days. You can't. But the biggest thing is, we love Gatlinburg, and it's probably one of our favorite places, other than cruising, because we love cruising.
That's a whole
too.
other episode, or 2 or 3 or season.
We'll talk about cruising later.
Hopefully we'll get back to that next year.
But I think Gatlinburg is one of those places where it doesn't get old.
That's another place we hadn't even mentioned. I know
Oh,
we're
yeah.
getting ready to wrap it up. But
Anakista.
Anakista. You have to do Anakista when you go to Gatlinburg. I want to say it's $25 per person, maybe.
I don't remember, but it's good. It's good to get you in all day.
Yes,
So
I think if you buy your ticket after 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. the night on a particular day, then that ticket gets you in the entire next day, and you can walk the rope bridges from one platform to the other. I don't think you've done that part yet, but that part's really fun. But
and
gotta do it
again, the views are spectacular. Well, anything else you can think of?
Plenty more things, but I think that's plenty for this episode.
Well,
And we'll go again, and we'll bring you even more things.
well, thank you for joining us, and we'll put some descriptions and maybe some links to some of these places in the description. And
let us know if you've been. It seems to be the thing where we're from here in Ohio that people go to Gatlinburg all the time. And that's what we just call the whole area. So if you've been, let us know what was your favorite thing. What have you done that you think we need to do? And we will absolutely go do that. Maybe within reason. I don't think there's anything too extreme. Well, I don't know. There's some extreme things.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the bungee stuff and the shoot
Right.
you up in the air kind of stuff. But
Right.
yeah, let us know what you've done. And yeah, we'll go try out some of those things.
well, until next time, thank you for joining the Long Way Home.